In the late 18th century, a new chapter in American history was being written, etched onto the landscape by the footsteps of pioneers and the shadows of outlaws. The American frontier, stretching across the vast expanse of Kentucky and Tennessee, was a place of stark contradiction, a land of promise intertwined with ever-present peril. It was vast, wild, an untamed wilderness teeming with both opportunity and unseen dangers lurking behind every tree. For those brave enough to venture into its depths, the frontier offered the promise of a fresh start, but it also demanded resilience and a constant vigilance against the unknown. It was a land where dreams could be realized, or shattered in an instant. Families, burdened with hope and possessions, left the perceived safety of the East, drawn by the allure of cheap land, fertile soil, and the tantalizing prospect of a new life, free from the constraints of established society. They braved treacherous journeys, enduring hardship and uncertainty as they traversed rough, unforgiving trails like the infamous Wilderness Road, a narrow artery carved through the heart of the untamed territory. The frontier promised freedom from the rigid confines of old social structures, a chance to forge one's own destiny in a land where anything seemed possible. But its very wildness also meant isolation, a profound sense of loneliness, the absence of established law, and the constant, gnawing threat of danger, both from the elements and from other men. Justice, when it was metered out at all, was often swift, brutal, and crude, reflecting the harsh realities of a world where survival was paramount. For these pioneers, survival was not a guarantee, but a daily struggle, a constant test of their strength, resilience, and unwavering determination. And the line between civilization, with its fragile veneer of order, and the untamed savagery of the wilderness was often razor-thin, easily blurred by desperation and the ever-present struggle for survival. This untamed land, with its allure of freedom and opportunity, attracted not only hard-working pioneers seeking a better life, but also those seeking to escape their pasts, men and women running from the consequences of their actions, hoping to disappear into the vast anonymity of the frontier. There were men who saw the wilderness not as a place to build, but as a place to hide, a lawless realm where they could prey upon the vulnerable and exploit the unwary. Into this volatile world where hope and danger danced a deadly waltz, emerged two figures, shrouded in mystery, and driven by a darkness that would soon consume all who crossed their path. Their names would become synonymous with terror, their violence leaving an indelible stain on the early history of the United States, a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. They were not settlers, not builders, but predators, driven by a primal hunger for violence and a complete disregard for human life. Moving through the frontier like shadows, they left a trail of bloodshed and fear in their wake, their presence a constant reminder of the fragility of life in this untamed land. Their names were whispered in hushed tones around campfires, their deeds recounted with a mixture of horror and morbid fascination, their legends soon synonymous with senseless brutality and unimaginable cruelty. They were the Harpe Brothers, Micajah and Wiley, two names that would forever be etched in the annals of American crime. The Harpe Brothers were a chilling reminder that the greatest dangers on the frontier were not always the wild animals or the harsh elements, but sometimes the men who walked among you, their hearts filled with darkness and their hands stained with blood. Micajah Harpe, Big Harpe, a name that still sends shivers down the spines of historians and true crime enthusiasts alike. He stands as one of America's first documented serial killers, a distinction that places him in a chilling and infamous position in the annals of American crime. His life is shrouded in mystery and legend, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction, and adding to the mystique that surrounds his dark deeds. Born around 1768, the exact details of his birth and early childhood remain elusive, lost to the passage of time. He was possibly born to Loyalist parents in North Carolina, a detail that might explain some of the resentment that would later fuel his violent actions. He and his brother Wiley, often considered his partner in crime, shared a bond forged in hardship and rebellion. They grew up with a deep resentment toward the new American order, perhaps feeling disenfranchised or wronged by the outcome of the revolution. Unlike typical outlaws who were often driven by greed or desperation, Micajah's crimes weren't primarily for financial gain, though robbery was sometimes a factor. Instead, his actions seemed driven by pure malice, a deep-seated hatred that manifested in acts of unspeakable cruelty. This left communities terrified and bewildered, struggling to understand the senseless violence that had been unleashed upon them. The lawlessness of the frontier with its vast distances and sparse population allowed the Harpes to move freely, evading capture and continuing their spree of terror across the untamed landscape. They were particularly known for targeting travelers and settlers in isolated cabins, preying on the vulnerability of those who had ventured into the wilderness in search of a new life. Their reign of terror, though brief in the grand scheme of history, was intensely brutal and shocking, and left a permanent scar on the folklore of the regions they haunted. Kentucky, where some of their most notorious crimes took place, Tennessee, another state that bore witness to their depravity, and Illinois, all forever marked by the Harpes passage. Micajah Harpe's story is a stark illustration, a grim reminder of the darkness that could flourish unchecked on the edge of American civilization, where the rules were still being written and the law was often absent. His legacy is not just a tale of true crime, it's a chilling exploration of human depravity. It's a reminder of the arduous struggle to build justice and order in a land where chaos often reigned and where the line between good and evil was often blurred. Micajah's story is inseparable from his brother Wiley, Little Harpe, his partner in terror. Big Harpe was the dominant force, large, imposing, and explosively violent, while Wiley followed in his shadow. Their origins are murky, but their deep-seated animosity towards settlers and authority set them apart. They first appeared in East Tennessee around 1797, traveling with captive women and children, forming a twisted, insular clan. The women, Susan and Betsy Roberts, were captives, forced to endure the brothers' cruelty. The Harpes' violence was indiscriminate, directed at both strangers and their own group. Unlike typical outlaws, they killed for the sake of killing, united by a shared capacity for brutality. Together, they became a two-headed monster, stalking the lonely trails and homesteads of the American wilderness. The Harpe brothers' reign of terror spanned a vast and unforgiving landscape. Their names became synonymous with dread, whispered in hushed tones around crackling fires and within the fragile walls of isolated cabins. Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois, these three states formed the bloody stage for their gruesome acts. The very mention of these territories evoked images of untamed wilderness and the constant threat of the unknown. Theirs was a mobile nightmare that left settlers in constant fear, a dark cloud hanging over the promise of a new life in the West. Families huddled together, praying for safety as the sun dipped below the horizon. Their nomadic lifestyle allowed them to evade capture, moving swiftly through the dense forests and along winding trails, always one step ahead of the law and the growing number of vigilantes. Striking unpredictably and vanishing into the wilderness, they became legends in their own time, whispered about in taverns and around campfires. The dense foliage offered them cover, and the vastness of the land, escape. They turned the wilderness road, a symbol of hope and westward expansion, into a corridor of death, a place where dreams were shattered and lives were brutally extinguished. Preying on travelers and families alike, they showed no mercy, their actions fueled by a depravity that shocked even the most hardened frontiersmen. No one was safe from their bloodlust. Their reputation grew with each brutal act, each senseless killing adding to the brothers' infamy, stories spreading by word of mouth and fueling paranoia across the frontier, turning neighbor against neighbor as fear gripped the hearts of the settlers. Trust became a rare and precious commodity. Over 2 years they were credited with dozens of murders, a staggering number that painted a grim picture of life on the edge of civilization. Most victims, simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, their lives cut short by the brothers' insatiable hunger for violence. The Harpes often befriended travelers, gaining their trust with false smiles and empty promises, only to turn on them at night, their betrayal a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within the human heart. Eroding the trust essential for survival in a world where cooperation was often the only thing standing between life and death. Even hardened river pirates, men accustomed to violence and lawlessness, found their savagery intolerable, recoiling at the sheer brutality and senselessness of the Harpes' crimes. Eventually driving them away, forcing them to seek refuge elsewhere, a testament to the brothers' unparalleled wickedness. Their ability to move and kill across such a wide area, seemingly without consequence, exposed the vulnerability of the young nation's frontier, highlighting the challenges of maintaining order in a land so vast and untamed. The Harpes thrived in the absence of law, exploiting the lack of established authority to carry out their heinous deeds, leaving a trail of fear wherever they went, forever staining the history of the American frontier with their bloodthirsty legacy. The Harpes' victims were ordinary people, travelers, settlers, entire families, simply trying to build new lives. Their violence was indiscriminate. Men, women, and children all fell prey, often in their own homes. The murder of Stephen Langford, a young surveyor, and the massacre of the Titsworth family cemented their reputation for brutality. The Harpes killed not for profit, but seemingly for the pleasure of it, setting them apart from other outlaws. Even their own companions weren't safe. Micajah is said to have killed his own infant daughter to silence her cries. This act, more than any other, marked him as a monster devoid of human compassion. The Harpes' motiveless violence terrified the frontier, making them a subject of fascination and horror for generations. Their legacy is a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. By 1799, the people of Kentucky had had enough. The Harpes' murders sparked outrage and a call for justice. After the killing of Mrs. Stegall and her child, Moses Stegall led a posse of frontiersmen in pursuit. The chase was relentless, the posse driven by vengeance and the need to end the terror. They finally caught up with Micajah near Dixon, Kentucky, on August 24, 1799. In the ensuing skirmish, Harpe was shot and mortally wounded, captured alive but beyond saving. As he lay dying, confronted by Stegall, Harpe confessed to many murders, showing no remorse, only grim pride. His confession confirmed the worst fears of those who had heard his name. The reign of Big Harpe ended not with justice in a courtroom but with frontier vengeance in the wilderness. Micajah Harpe's death was made into a public warning. Moses Stegall, fueled by grief, severed Harpe's head and carried it to a crossroads near the Henderson County line. There, the posse wedged the head in a tree fork, creating a grim landmark, Harpe's head. The display was a stark message. The frontier would not tolerate such evil. For years, travelers passed beneath the decaying head, a constant reminder of the community's resolve. The act blurred the line between justice and vengeance, but it restored a sense of safety to the region. Harpe's head became part of local folklore, a symbol of both the brutality of the crime and the punishment. The story endures as a powerful image of frontier justice, harsh, direct, and unforgettable. The Harpe brothers are widely recognized as America's first serial killers, setting them apart from typical outlaws. Their violence was not a means to an end, but the end itself, a pattern of motiveless, repetitive killing. The concept of serial murder didn't exist in their time, but their actions fit the modern definition with chilling precision. Their story challenges the myth of a simpler, more innocent past, revealing that darkness has always existed in American society. The Harpes thrived in the lawless, isolated frontier, highlighting the need for organized justice. Their eventual capture by a citizen posse shows how communities had to become their own agents of order. The Harpes are not just a footnote. They are a foundational case in the history of American crime. Their legacy forces us to confront the timeless potential for human evil. More than 2 centuries later, the Harpe Brothers' story still haunts Kentucky and Tennessee. Their legacy is one of infamy, not legend figures of pure evil, not romantic outlaws. Their names linger in local folklore, cautionary tales, and place names like Harpe's Head Road. The Harpes complicate the heroic narrative of westward expansion, exposing the frontier's dark underbelly. As America's first serial killers, they mark the beginning of a grim lineage that continues to fascinate and horrify. Their story reminds us that the capacity for such crimes has always been present in society. The Harpes are a touchstone in the history of American crime, a warning that the wilderness is not just in the land, but sometimes in the hearts of men. Their legacy endures as a chilling whisper from the past, a reminder of civilization's fragile boundaries.